We are now going to look at item 53. This is the bullet that was found on January 20th, 2015. I'll show you the photos first. There's only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 photos, and then we'll discuss it. So let's go through these 6 photos here. This is pulled up against the blood wall. So where that couch was, the couch has now been moved, and this desk is pushed up against that same wall. You can see to the far left, you can even see that the white painting of that wall, because when the cleaners came in, they painted this wall white to cover up that blood painting, the blood smearing, all that stuff. So when the cleaners came in, they painted this, got rid of the Allahu Akbar written in blood, but this is that same wall. This is the west wall. You can barely see that mushroom bullet right there in the center on the floor. This rolled out of a carpet. I'm assuming the living room carpet. We'll get to that. Here is a comparison to a pin. Shows you exactly where it is. Let's go to the next one. Taking measurements here. Doesn't appear to be any blood or anything, but apparently blood was found on that, and the blood matched Rania, the 5-year-old daughter. So on January 18th, they leave the house without this bullet. Here's another shot of the bullet. Reading from Brian Bones' report here. At approximately 1300 hours on 1/20/2015, Detective McKnight was contacted by the company cleaning up the Crowley residence at the request of David's father. The cleanup crew personnel notified Detective McKnight that they had discovered a bullet at the residence. They relayed to Detective McKnight that while picking up the rug from the main living room area, a bullet had come out of the carpet and fallen to the floor. They were uncertain exactly where the bullet had been on the carpet, but said that it had fallen out of the rug and onto the adjacent hardwood floor. I responded back to the scene where I assisted in collecting the bullet that was discovered. I photographed the area, finding that the crime scene cleanup crew had cleaned up the residence. So they're not exactly sure where the bullet was, but it was attached to that carpet. And somehow the crime scene team, the BCA, they missed this. Collecting evidence. Everybody collecting evidence missed this. The bullet will be transferred to the BCA crime lab for further analysis. It should be noted that the bullet was predominantly flat on the back and was sitting on the front mushroom portion of the bullet. The bullet appeared to be mostly intact at the time of our discovering it. The photographs of the bullet were later downloaded to a secure server at the Apple Valley Police Department. So that's what Brian Bones says about item 53. Here's what Detective McKnight says about item 53. Since these meetings, I've worked with the family on a number of issues, including getting the dog that was found in the house to DJ. They also asked that I work with the biotech crime scene team and escort them into the house. I was contacted by the cleanup team while they were in process. They stated that they had located a bullet that had been rolled up in the carpet. The bullet had rolled out under the hardwood floor that had already been cleaned. I went to the house and assisted Detective Bone and Booth in collecting the bullet. Here's another interesting thing about item 53 is when the blood tests are done, when the DNA tests are done, it is found that there is a mixture of 2 or more people. David and Kamel are excluded from being contributors. So we have another person here, another person that contributed to item 53. Very curious. Very curious there, right? Perhaps this might be the biggest smoking gun of them all. Does this show that somebody else was in the house? Does this show that somebody else was in the house at the time of the murders, at the time of these killings? How does item 53 match Rania, but not David or Kamel? It's an interesting one there. There's also mentioned in the BCA report that item 53 was shot from item 1. So if they believe that item 1 shot item 53, yet item 53 is showing 2 people's DNA and David and Kamel are excluded, could that mean that somebody else fired item 53 from item 1? Whatever the case, it is 2 or more DNA profiles that were found on item 53. One matches Rania. It does not match David and Kamel. Let's now look at item 57. Item 57 is also a bullet that was found on February 18, 2015. No blood is found on this bullet, but the DNA profile does match David Crowley. In all of the photos that we have, there is one that shows the ceiling where the bullet should have been on January 17th. Let's look at that one. And here is the only image that we have so far that would show whether or not a bullet hole was in the living room ceiling when the police first entered this house on January 17th, when these photos were first taken. This photo is included so that way you can see what it looked like 1 month later, what the house looked like there. In the second image, we're pulling back a little bit. You can see that the marker on the south wall is still there. I'm not sure if blood is still there or not. Let's look at the third image here. Getting another shot. And you can see definitely some things look wiped there. 2 different types of curtains, both red, not matching at all. The shoes are still there on the ground. Let's look at the next one. Now we're getting a closer image. So hard for me to say exactly if that's before or after Joe Cooksley puts his finger through this hole. So the reason that this hole might look a little big to us right now is because by this point Joe Cooksley has already put his finger through it. Alright, here's another angle of that hole that you can see there. They don't mention any traces of blood or anything like that here, so let's go to the next one. An even closer image. This is going to lead up into the attic. Let's go to the next one. Now we're pulling back a little bit so we can see where somebody would have to be standing or sitting, kneeling, etc. for the bullet to enter in this way. Let's go to the next one. It's going to give us a little more close-up view here. It's a pretty big hole. Obviously you're not going to miss that one right there. So I'm assuming that is when, definitely after Joe Cooksley put his finger through it for whatever reason. Here's another image, scrolling to the next one. We get to see that hole and the distance from the light for one last time. That'll be the last one at this distance. Let's go to the next one with the marker there, and you can see. Now, if the marker is up, I would hope that this was taken before Joe Cooksley put his finger through this hole. Hard to really tell. It would be good to follow up on that for sure. Here's from another angle, same one. You can see the distance. It's a big hole at this point. Now we're going into the attic. This is from the master bedroom. You can also get to the same attic from the garage. And I believe one person went up this way and the other BCA crime scene team person went through the garage, and they scattered the attic. They looked through the attic. What you'll notice here though, in the next photo right here, is that there is a ladder there. And this ladder was not there when police left this house on the 17th. Not clear if it was there when the police left the house on January 20th or not. But that's how they got up there, or that's how somebody got up there. So somebody was up there, and we know that that was Chris Klein, Mason Hendricks, and that cast of characters. A group of them. Depending on who you ask, you might get different stories about who exactly was in the house on January 19th. We'll get to that later. And here's another shot to show the distance, how far back it was. Let's go to the next one. We're now in the attic. Okay, so hard to see there where it is, but it's kind of in the upper left corner is where the bullet is. Let's go to the next photo. Getting another angle so you can see the drywall. The bullet goes up through this attic. Skip to the next one. Hits this top paneling here. You can see by the white marks there. Let's go to the next one. And lands right here. You can see exactly where the bullet lands. Next shot is a little close-up view, closer view of that one. Let's go to the next one here. Here's a close-up view of that hole. Let's go to the next one. Close-up view of the plywood leading to the roof. Next one. It is now labeled as item 57. Next shot, a closer view of item 57 as well. Next one gives us item 57 still, but now we're pulling back a little bit so we can see exactly where the bullet went into the attic and then bounced back down. Hopefully that will help somebody, give us some clear indication of where the bullet was coming from here. Here's an even further view, a little pulled back a little bit more. These are all DSC, by the way. Next one. Now some of these were included in the BCA photos that we got later on, unlike item 53. And let's go to the last image here, and you can see where the white markings are and where the bullet probably ricocheted. But in order for it to ricochet here, to land back down where item 57 is found, how far away would someone have to be? Would someone have to be literally on the ground? And none of that answers the question of why police miss this either. So let's read from the police reports. This is Brian Bones' police report about Chris Klein. This is where it gets very interesting. Okay, on 2/17, I spoke to Christopher Klein, who identified himself as a friend of the Crowley family. I had been trying to locate Klein to learn why he had been at the Crowley residence on 1/19, as a neighbor had called in about a suspicious person at the house. Klein received my business card at his residence and called me back at approximately 1700 hours on 2/17/15. Klein wanted to ask me questions about the status of the investigation and was speculating about how many rounds had been discharged at the house. He indicated to me that he had been in the house since the discovery of the Crowley family at the residence. He said he had been there with David's father and brother and had seen there were 2 shot rounds in the floor and roof. Prior to this conversation, I was unaware of a round being shot into the ceiling roof. Detective McKnight assisted me in contacting David's father and to ask for consent, to enter the home to look for the damage to the ceiling. On 2/18/2015, Detective McKnight spoke to Daniel Crowley and obtained permission to go into the house. At approximately 1500 hours, Detective McKnight and I used the house key in the front door lockbox to gain entry into the house. We immediately found what appeared to be a bullet hole in the ceiling near the front door and adjacent to the living room. From my initial looking at the hole in the ceiling, it appeared that the bullet may have come from the living room area. Based on the angle, the bullet appeared to have traveled through the sheetrock. We looked for access to the attic area of the house and found that the attic access from the master bedroom room closet was open. This had not been open at the time of our initial search of the house on 1/17/15. I contacted the BCA crime scene team and advised them of our findings. I requested they assist us in documenting the damage and assist in looking for the bullet in the ceiling and attic area. We secured the house, and Detective McKnight maintained security on the house while I obtained a warrant for the house. I prepared a search warrant for the house to recover the bullet believed to be in the ceiling or attic area. On 2/18/15 at 16:25 hours, the Honorable Judge S. Moynihan signed a search warrant granting us access to the house to recover what was believed to be a bullet from the ceiling. Detective McKnight NTS assisted me in executing the warrant with the assistance of the BCA crime scene team and Special Agent Olson with the BCA. During the warrant, they found what is believed to be a bullet in the attic area of the house. See the BCA crime scene team's report and photos for more information on the bullet. The BCA crime scene team collected the bullet and completed a property receipt, which was left at the house. Here's where it gets interesting. On 2/19/14, I viewed photos taken from the initial search of the house. In viewing these photos, I could see the hole in the ceiling, which we discovered on 2/18/15. So he's claiming the photos do exist. This is still Brian Bone. The photos do exist that show a bullet hole was in the living room ceiling on January 17th. But he also states here that he did not see it. He was not aware that a bullet hole existed on January 17th. Nobody was. Nobody was. Detective Gummert was a little more evasive in his answer about that. He said that he did see the bullet hole, but he wasn't sure when. And I think what it comes down to is nobody saw it on January 17th, and nobody knew about this bullet until February 18th, a month later. Wow. Detective McKnight writes something similar. He says, on 2/18/2015, I was informed by Detective Bone that there may be a bullet hole in the living room ceiling at the home of David and Kamel Crowley. The party given Detective Bone the information was Christopher Klein. Klein reported to be a friend of the family and had said he had been inside the home with Dan Sr. and Jr. and had seen the bullet hole then. During the initial processing of the crime scene, we knew that we could not account for several bullets that may have been fired from the gun used. The information given to Detective Bone could not be verified since we could not establish a definite connection between the reporter and the family. I contacted Daniel Crowley, Daniel Sr. I contacted Daniel Theodore Crowley, the father of David Crowley. To our knowledge, he is the next of kin in this case. He told me that he was not aware of the bullet hole and had not gone into the home with Klein. I asked for permission from Dan Sr. to enter the home to verify that there is a bullet hole. He agreed to let us in and provided us with the lockbox code. Detective Bone and I went to the home and found the bullet hole near the entryway in close proximity to where the Christmas tree had been. We exited the home and ensured it was secure. I waited in the driveway until Detective Bone could obtain a search warrant. He obtained a search warrant authorized by the Honorable Judge Moynihan. He also contacted the BCA crime scene team to search for the bullet and document the scene. The bullet was located in the attic rafters under the insulation. The measurements and collection of the bullet was completed by the crime scene team. I stayed at the house the entire time and assisted the crime scene team in locating and documenting the location of the bullet. I was assisted by Detective Tietz. The search started at 1700 hours and was concluded at about 1935 hours. The bullet was taken by the BCA for further examination. And once this bullet is tested, once item 57 is tested, it comes back with one male DNA profile, matches David, does not match Kamel, does not match Rania. The results show that blood was not detected on item 57. So the DNA profile does match David. There's no blood on this bullet. Very curious.